We now learn about equivalent fractions. To begin with, we need to actually define what equivalent fractions are. Now, two fractions, a over b and c over d, are equivalent if they are equal in value and they are written over different denominators. And to help us understand what is actually meant by this, it's often useful to use some illustrations. So let's say, for instance, that we're dealing with two pizzas, with the first pizza split in two halves and the second pizza split into 4 quarters. So that would look like this. Now, let's focus on this first pizza for a second, and I were to tell you, okay, you can have half of this pizza. Then that would mean that you could have all the pizza that I'm currently shading in red right now. And the fraction that represents that is 1/2, or 1/2. Now, focusing on the second pizza, this one here, I could give you the same amount of pizza, but I could state it differently and say that I'll give you 2 quarters of this pizza. Well, again, the area I could shade to show you how much pizza you have would be this area. And we can see quite clearly here that you're getting just as much pizza, but in this case, you're getting 2 quarters of the pizza. What this simple example shows us is that 1/2 is equal to 2 quarters. And these two fractions, 1/2 and 2/4, are equivalent fractions because they're both equal in terms of quantity or value, but they're written over different denominators. To illustrate this a little further, let's say we're dealing with 2 lemon pies. And the first pie would be cut into thirds, whereas the second pie we could cut into sixths. And that would look something like this. Now, referring to this first pie here, let's say I were to tell you, okay, I'm going to give you 1/3 of the pie. Then I could illustrate how much I'm going to give you with this shaded area here. And in terms of fractions, what I'm giving you is 1/3. That's 1/3 of this pie. And now, looking at this second pie here, which is cut into sixths, I could tell you, all right, I'm going to give you 2/6 of this pie. And that would correspond to this area that I'm shading right now. And written in terms of fractions, the amount I've given you with this second pie would be 2/6, or 2/6. And now looking at these, we can see right away that you've gotten the same amount of pie in the first case than in the second. And so these two fractions are equal. And these two fractions are equivalent fractions. Those are 2 equal fractions which are written over different denominators. And there we have it. That's what equivalent fractions are all about. 2 fractions that are equal and written over different denominators. By the end of this course, we're going to know how to do quite a few things with equivalent fractions. For instance, we'll know how to show that the 2 fractions 4/7 and 20/35 are equivalent. We'll also know how to answer questions like, what must x be for the 2 fractions 2/3 and x/12 to be equivalent? Or we could also be asked, what does x have to be for the fractions 3/5 and 15/x to be equivalent? And those are the key things we're going to be learning about with equivalent fractions. But that's it for this tutorial. I really hope that helped, and if it did, please hit like on this video and even subscribe to our channel because that really does help us. I'll see you soon.